Hi everyone, today we're going to model this mechanical shaft or rod in Moment of Inspiration, and I've opened the original model, which is from a free kit bash set in Cinema 4D, and this is how it looks like. And I've already prepared a version of this rod in Moment of Inspiration, and this is what the model we're going to be doing will look like when we're finished. And this doesn't have any fillets yet. We're going to add those to the finished model as well, of course. So let's get started. First of all, we need some reference images. I have prepared a project folder for you with the file and the reference images. I'm not sure though if the images will show in the file when you open it. So let's just add those images in this video, just in case you don't know how to do that. And what we need to do is go to the View tab and click on Image. And then we can add our reference images here, navigate to the folder where you saved your images. I'm going to start with a side reference. Let's switch on grid snap, and I'm going to snap to the third square on the left and then to the third square on the right. Switch off grid snap, and I'm going to move this image down a little bit and line it up with the center of the grid. Let's go ahead and add the top reference. Again, I'm going to snap to the third square on the left and then to the third square on the right. And again, line this image up. And we also need to rotate this around 90 degrees like so. By default, Moment of Inspiration is set to show the reference images in all views, but I don't really want that, so I've switched that to orthographic views only, and I've also added a bit of transparency. So let's get started modeling. Actually, before we get started, I'm going to hide the grid, and I want to make sure that these images line up. So like in the previous videos, we're going to use a reference object that we're going to draw around the right view, and then we're going to line up the image in the top view. Now, first of all, you can see I can still select these images. We need to hit the Done button in order to lock the reference images in place. And then we can draw a curve. Let's go for a rectangle that we're going to draw from the corner. And I'm going to draw it from here to here. Select the curve, go to Edit, and let's show the points. And I'm going to select these two. And I have straight snap switched on, so I can move them parallel to the axis. And what I did wrong in one of the previous videos was when I had selected the points, I tried to click on this line and move them around. And in Moment of Inspiration, that's not really what you should do unless you want to change the shape of that curve. So with those points selected, left click on one of the points and drag. And doing it like this, you will make sure that you only move the points and don't change the shape of that curve. Left click to deselect all the points, and let's go ahead and select these ones. I will move these over a bit as well. So something like this. Let's switch to the top view, hide the points, and I'm going to select that curve and drag it over to the side. And then we need to go back to View, Image. And it looks like this is actually lined up pretty well. We don't need to make any changes. So I'll just hit Done, delete that curve, and go back to my right view, and we can get started. And the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to use a polyline to create the outline of the shape. So let's go to Draw Curves, Lines, Polyline, and we're going to start somewhere here at the center of the grid. And I'll put my first point around here maybe. And then I'll just switch off straight snap. No, I'll leave that switched on. And then I'll just trace that shape. Now over here, I'll just do the shape something like this without this extra little corner here. We're going to create that by filleting or chamfering this point or this corner later. So let's drag the next point, or let's create the next point maybe about here. And this detail up here is something that we're going to add later. This one we're going to add in a minute by using another curve. So let's create our next point over here. And continue tracing that shape. Right now it's not very accurate. We're going to adjust the position of those points in a second. And when we're done, we can right click to finish that curve. And let's go ahead and adjust some of the points here. So let's go to Edit and show the points of this curve. And I'm deselecting everything before I select the new points, because if you forget to do that, you will accidentally move the points that are still selected as well. So left click to deselect everything, and I think we're good here. Let's select this point. You could also just left click on a point to select it, or you can use the marquee selection to select it. Let's go ahead and drag these down a little bit, and I'm going to move this one over. Okay, so something like this looks good. And now we're going to create the 3D shape by revolving this curve. And you can find the revolve function under the construct tab here. Revolve, we can use this option here. And we need to pick the revolve axis start point. The angle needs to be 360 degrees. So I'm going to click on that first point here and then just drag out a straight line and left click again to create the 3D shape. Let's go to the perspective view, and I will name that curve. Let's call this main shape curve. If you want to, you can also delete it. Naming the objects will make them visible in the scene browser, so I can keep these and just switch them off. You could also use the hide option over here, but I find that pretty confusing sometimes, so I prefer to name everything that I want to keep and make it part of the scene manager by giving it a name, and then I can switch it on and off. So now we've got the basic shape, and now we can start adding some details. So I'm going back to the front view, and the object is hiding the reference image. We need to go back to View, Image, and switch the draw mode to Above Objects. Hit Done. So now we can see things a little better. And let's start with the difficult parts, which is these cutouts here, and we also need to create the shape here. And we're going to use another polyline, and I'll draw it out maybe something like this. For some parts of this object, I'm not going to follow the reference image too closely, because one of the difficulties in MoI is creating fillets, and as far as possible I want to make sure that I'm far away from the edges I want to fillet or chamfer, so I can actually apply fillets and chamfers without any problems. So we only need 3 points for this polyline. Right click to finish that curve. I'm going to select it, and then I'm going to construct and use fillet. And now we need to select the corners or push done to do all corners. In this case we only have one corner, so we don't really need to select this point. We can just simply right click, and then let's do a fillet of 2. That's a bit much. Let's try 1. And whenever possible, I don't go up here and enter these numbers. You can do that in the viewport. So I can just change that to 1 by typing 1 and hitting enter. And I think that looks a little better. Let's right click to confirm that. Going to select that curve, and maybe let's move this over just a little bit, something like this. And I'm going to mirror this over to the bottom. So let's go to the Transform tab, use Mirror, and I'm going to pick this center line here, and then just drag my mouse until the second curve is down here in the mirrored position, and then we can select our rod, or let's call this mechanical shaft 01, and I'm going to select both curves as well, and then I'm going to do a Boolean merge. And the curves remain selected. We can now select the parts that have been cut and delete them. Let's go to the top view. Just want to see how that looks. And actually this is a bit wide, so I'm going to undo that. Go back to the right view, and I'll select this curve and drag it up a little bit further. And you can see the bottom curve still moves and gets mirrored over properly. So let's try something like this. Again, select the 3 objects and do a Boolean merge. Delete these parts. Let's check this in the top view, and I think that looks a little bit better. So let's create this cutout here. I'm using a polyline again, and let's start maybe here and create the next point here, but I want to make sure I'm using I'm staying parallel, and you do that if you have straight snap switched on, and you can see that light gray line. So maybe I'll create the second point here, and in this case I do want to keep away a little bit further from that edge. So let me hit Ctrl Z to undo that. I'm going to create that point maybe about here, and then create the third point about here. Right click to finish that curve, select it, and I'm going to fillet this. And let's do a radius of 3 is a bit much. Let's do 2 maybe. Right click to confirm that. And we're basically done. And there's one thing I forgot to do actually. I'm not sure if this will work for this curve up here, but we could try. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this curve, hit Control C to copy it, and then I'm going to hit Control Z a couple of times to go back. I'm going to paste that curve back in there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use an option in Moment of Inspiration that is called Rebuild. And what this option does is it rebuilds a curve and removes all corner points. Whenever you fillet a corner on a curve, you get corner points, and these corner points create edges like the one you saw in the cutout. And you can try and avoid that. I'm going to select both of these curves, go to Edit, Show Points, and let me just select one of these points. Maybe you can see that. You can see the sharp corner here. It's a corner point, and that's why we're getting this edge. So let's try and rebuild those curves and make everything nice and smooth. And we can do that by hitting the Tab key, and then you can enter Rebuild down here in this field here. Or you can use a shortcut, and in the video description you will find a link to the shortcuts that I'm using. It's a text file that you can download. If you go to Options and go to Shortcuts, you can see I'm using the plus key and the command is Rebuild. So I'm going to hit the plus key, and I have some rebuild options here. I'm going to leave everything at the default, refit, tolerance, and delete input objects. So just hit done. And now if we select these 3 objects and do a Boolean merge, let's see what we get. Oh, let me just try that again. It's a bit tricky to select. Let's delete these, and you can see we're not getting this edge anymore. And this is an advantage in many cases because you can add additional details and you can add your fillets. It does look a bit weird though, but everything seems to be fine. So let's go ahead and delete these objects down here. And we're going to do the same thing with this curve. Let's go back to the top view. Let's just switch on Show Points so you can see what's happening. Again, I'm going to hit the plus key to rebuild that curve. Right click to confirm. And with that curve selected, I'm going to mirror this over. Then select all 3 objects and do a Boolean merge. And let's remove these parts. And that is what we have so far. And again, you can see we're not creating any new edges here, which is good. So in the front view, you can see we still have a part of the object that is missing. And I've tried to do this in different ways, and the way I'm showing right now is what I ended up doing, and that is what actually worked best. So what we're going to do to create this part here is select the object, go to Edge Mode by selecting the edge here, and I'm also going to select these 2. And I'm going to use another revolve command on these. We don't need to copy and paste these edges, we just need to select them. And so let's use revolve. I'm going to snap to the center, and that is the revolve axis start point, and now we need to pick the revolve axis endpoint, and it's going to be this one. I'm going to keep the angle at 360 degrees. I tried 180 in a test, but it wouldn't cap the object that was created. So in this case, I'll just keep the default settings, click to create the endpoint, and now we get this here. And I think that's fine. It's not like it is in the reference image. What we could do is we could try and move this object over a little bit. However, we need to be careful because we need to make sure that these points stay lined up, and actually we can only do that if we keep the object in the position where it was created. So this part is going to be a little bit different, but that's fine. The main idea is to get something that is as clean as possible and to get an object where we can add fillets without getting any problems if possible. So let's select both of these objects, and I'm going to use a Boolean Union on these. And that didn't work so well because we're getting these edges here. So let's go back and do this differently. I'm going to select this object, go back to the right view, hit Alt-Q to isolate the object. And by the way, you can also right-click on the hide button to isolate an object. That is a tip I received from someone who was watching one of my first 2 MoI tutorials. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a single line, snap it to here, and I'll make it rather long, and then move it up a bit. And then I'm going to do a Boolean difference. Right click to confirm. Let's see, that didn't seem to work. I'll just undo that. And I'll try a Boolean merge instead. Delete these 2 objects, hit Alt-Q to bring the other object back. And let's go ahead and try a Boolean Union and see if this works. So this is a lot better. You can see we don't have any additional edges. We still have a solid object, and we're going to rename this to mechanical shaft again. So let's go ahead and add the additional details here at the front. And I just saw that I forgot to create this detail. We could have done that using an additional curve and combining it with the original curve that we did, but we should be able to do that with a sweep object and Boolean Union. First of all though, let's go ahead and create these cutouts here. I'm going to start with a circle from the center. I'll snap it to here for now and just drag it out to about here and then move it over to here. And we're going to get this line here, which shouldn't be a problem, so I'm not going to worry about that. And let's drag out a copy, and I'm going to select this and scale it down a bit, and then just move it over to about here. Well, actually, let's move it to about here. And I'm going to select our shaft and do a Boolean difference. Now we need to select the objects that we want to subtract, right click to confirm, and now we've got these holes in there. And we can get rid of these circles by deleting them. Let's have a look. So here everything is looking good. Next, let's try and add this detail here. I'm going to start with a circle again, and I'll draw this out like this. And I'm going to create another circle using the diameter option. And because I have object snap switched on, I can snap this new circle to the center point of the smaller circle, and then let's just drag it down. Before I do though, let's go ahead and mirror this one over. We don't need this one, I just need it to create that second circle. So I can snap to the center point on this circle and then on the center point of this circle, and let's go to the top view. And I'm going to select the big circle and just rotate it 90 degrees. And then I'm going to use sweep. And that didn't work so well because I should have selected the profile first. So now we need to select the rail, which is this spline here. Right click to confirm. And there we go. We can delete these curves. Let's do that again because I screwed up. We need to confirm this again, and now we can get rid of these curves here. Actually, let's just keep them. I just want to see if everything works as it should. So I'm going to select these two objects here and do a Boolean Union. And it's working fine. We should be able to add fillets to this part. So let's go ahead and get rid of these curves here. We don't need these anymore. We also have this detail at the top. I'm going to create that with another circle. Let's create one from the center. And I don't want to put this right on the edge as it is in the reference image, because that will make it impossible to add fillets or chamfers. So I'm going to maybe start somewhere here and drag this out to about here. I'm going to move this away a little bit from that edge. Let me just undo that. So let's move it to about here maybe. Go to the top view. I'm going to frame that circle by hitting H or reset. H is my shortcut key for resetting the viewports, and we need to rotate this around 90 degrees. Something like this, and then we can go to construct, extrude, and extrude this over. Let's switch to the top view and extrude it all the way to here. And then I'm going to select these two objects, but we need to mirror this one first, so let's go back to the right view. So with this object selected, I'm going to use the mirror command again, and then let's do a Boolean Union. And we still have a solid, which is good, and we should be able to fillet these edges here without any problem. So now we need to add the details here at the back, and I'm going to start with a top. Let's create a polyline. I'll switch off object snap and I'll draw that line like this. Right click to finish that curve. Deselect everything, select the curve, and I'm going to fillet this. And because we only have one corner, we don't need to select the points. Let's just right click to confirm that, and let's do a radius of 3. a bit difficult to see, but that seems to be fine. And I'm going to mirror that over to the other side. Actually, I'm doing this wrong, because if you go to the top view, this actually is a cutout that goes all the way through the object. So let's get rid of these two curves again, and we're going to start with the cutouts here on the side. So let's draw another polyline. Like so. Select that curve and fillet it. And the radius of 3 that I used again looks right, so we can keep that and mirror this over to the other side, and then do a Boolean merge. Select these objects and delete them, and this is what we've got so far. Now you can see we'll have to do this again because we're getting these additional edges, and I don't want these. This is what happens when you don't rebuild the curves. You get these additional edges, and depending on how big you want your fillets to be, this can become a problem because of these additional edges that we have here. So I'll just go back, select these two curves, and just so you can see again what's happening, I'm going to show the points and then use rebuild, which is the plus key for me. Right click to confirm, and let's hide those points again. Select all 3 of these objects and do a Boolean merge. Delete these objects, and you can see now we have a clean surface here. Let's go to the top view and create that final cutout here. Going to start with a circle from the center, or actually let's do diameter. No, let's do center, because we can make sure that it's actually positioned right where it should be. So I'm going to drag this out to about here, move it over a little bit, and then we need 2 single lines, and I'm going to snap them to this point here on the circle. You can see we're dragging this along the tangent, which is exactly what we need. We do need to make sure that these points match up perfectly, because otherwise there's going to be trouble. So let's select this curve here and just mirror it over, and then select all 3 of these and use the trim function, which you can find under the edit tab. And we can just confirm the default settings here twice. Remove this part and select the 3 remaining curves, and let's join them. And again, if I show the points, this is what it looks like now. I'm going to rebuild that curve, and then I'm going to select both of them and do a Boolean merge and delete these parts. So again, we're getting a nice and clean surface here, and there's only one more detail that we need to add. If you go to the front view, you can see that we have these filleted corners here. So select the object, go to edge mode by selecting these edges here, and let's apply a fillet and a radius of 3 is probably too big. Let's try 1. And I'm wondering if this is going to be a problem when we fillet the edges here, because we still have this line. Let's try a smaller bevel and see how that looks, or fillet rather. So I'll try 0.5 and see how that looks. Let's go to the front view. Could be a little bit bigger. Let's try 0.7. And that's fine. Let's confirm that. And I'll just select this face here and try a fillet. And it's a bit big, but basically it seems to work. So that's good. So no problems here. We can fillet these edges. And actually filleting is just what we can do right away, because I think we've added all the details except for this hole. We need to get that in there. But other than that, we're pretty much done with this object. So let's go ahead and create another circle. Drag it out to about here. And I'll just move it around a bit, trying to line it up a little bit better with the reference image. Straight snap is getting in the way, so I'm switching that off. So something like this looks fine. Select the object, do a Boolean difference. Select the curve, right click to confirm, and there we go, we have our hole in there. We can delete that curve. And that's looking pretty good. I'm going to make a copy of the object while it's not yet filleted. Oh. And I wanted to switch on straight snap, but switched on object snap instead. Just going to move that back to there and rename that to no fillets mechanical shaft. And let's go ahead and hide that in the scene browser. And let's start filleting some edges here. Let's start with the ones at the back here. So select the object, select your first edge. Let's see if we can do loop selections here. My shortcut for that is Shift L. And again, you can get that from the text file I've provided for download, Shift L. For this one, you need a script. So if you want to, you can copy that from the text file and create that shortcut here. Let's do all of these separately. So I'm going to fillet these. And a radius of 0.2 looks okay, but you can see it's a little bit uneven. We can try and switch the shape to constant and see what we get. So this is actually looking pretty nice. Right click to confirm, and then I'm going to try and loop select these edges here, which is also working. Let's do another fillet. And I think I'll use the same distance here. That seems to be fine. So right click to confirm, and let's go ahead and select all of these edges here. And we might as well select the ones here at the front as well. And let's go ahead and fillet those. And again, I think that a radius of 0.2 looks fine. So let's right click to confirm that. And now let's see what we can do with this area here. I'll try and select all of the edges that I want to fillet. Now sometimes in MoI you have to be careful and add the bigger fillets first before you add smaller details. And that is something that can be a little bit difficult to guess if you don't have the experience in moment of inspiration. So I'm still struggling with that, but for this object we should be fine, hopefully. So let's start selecting these edges here. I try and do a loop selection and see what happens. Now this time it's not really working, so I'm going to hit Ctrl-Z to undo that, and we just need to select all of these manually. Everything should be working nicely because we did build a very clean mesh. There's a lot of things in moment of inspiration that you can do wrong, and you can break the mesh and get fillets that are not really working. But on this object here, I don't think we need to worry too much. So let's go ahead and try and fillet these edges. And it's working, but the distance is too big. I'll try 0.1, and that is working. Now what we could also try and do, and I'm not sure if I can get this to work because I've never really tried it before. What we can do is we can add additional fillet sets to define areas where we want the fillets to have a different distance. For example, we could try and make the fillet around here a little bit bigger. So what I'll do is, at least I'll try it, I'll add a new point set. And now what we can do is we can define the areas where we want a different distance. And I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to select all the points that I want. So it should work with these 2 points, hopefully. And let's select these two. Hit done. And now we need to pick the fillet radius. And let's make it 0.3. And we need to switch off constant distance, or rather change it from constant to circular. And let's see if that is working. Let's try 0.2. And there you go. So you can see we're having a slightly bigger fillet here at the back and a smaller fillet here at the front. And I'm going to keep that. So right click to confirm that. Next I'm going to try and fillet the edges around here. Can we do a loop selection? No, we can't. So we need to add these manually. Oh, and we do have a problem here. You can see we have this additional edge here. So the question is, how can we fix that? Well, what we can try and do is, first of all, hit escape. We can try and rebuild this surface. So what I'll do is I'll select this face here and delete it. And we also need to delete this one here, this small one. Just need to zoom in, select it, and delete it. And we're left with this. Now, if you select this edge here, is this still the curve? Yes. So I still had that curve from when I extruded that shape. So we need to select this object and select this edge. And you can see we have this tiny edge down here. So basically we have two edges, which means if we extrude this, we get a curve or a line or an edge, and we don't want that. And there's a way you can fix things like that in Moment of Inspiration. And in order to fix edges on a surface, you can use the merge command. It's not the same as the Boolean merge though. And the way to get to this command is by hitting the tab key and then entering merge down here. And I have a shortcut for this. M for merge. So if I hit M, these edges should be merged, and hopefully, if I deselect this, now you can see we only have one edge left. And we're going to do the same thing over here. So deselect everything, select these two edges, I will merge them. Now I have only one edge left. And I'm going to select these two edges here, and I'm going to loft them. Right click to confirm, left click to deselect everything, and we need to do the same thing down here. So let's select this face and delete it, and let's zoom in and delete this face. And then I'm going to select the edges that I want to merge. It's these two over here, and these two over here. So I'm going to merge them, and then select the object again, select this edge, select this edge, use loft, right click to confirm, deselect everything, and all we need to do now, hopefully, is select all three of these objects and do a Boolean Union. Let's see if that works. And it did work, so we're ending up with a solid that unfortunately we need to rename once again. And now we should be able to add fillets to these edges here. Okay, so let's hit fillet, and it's working. I'll just make this a little bit smaller. And it does look fine. We could try constant, but actually it already looks pretty good. And constant is not working in this case, so let's go back to circular. Right click to confirm, and there we go. Now the rest of these edges shouldn't be a problem. And I think I'll just apply the same fillet to all of these, except maybe this one down here. Now over here you can see we have a single edge here, but apparently multiple edges over here. I'll just select all of these, and I'll try to merge everything. Not sure why we're getting all of these edges here. Let's just make sure that we get the tiny ones as well. So I'm using my shortcut to merge these edges, which didn't really work. No, it didn't. So I think we probably need to delete the faces first. Not sure. We could try that. So I'm just going to delete that. Oh, and we do have an issue here. Look at that. So I've just deleted these parts. And now let's see. We should actually be able to select these in the front view, hopefully. So I'm just going to drag around these edges here. And you can see we have 20 edges. I'll merge these. And we still have 20 edges. So I'll tell you what. I'll just delete all of these faces here. And then get rid of this junk here. It also looks like we've got other objects as well. Not sure what happened there. So now we've got one edge here and two edges here. Let's see if we can loft these. And I'll try a Boolean Union, which is not working. I just isolate this part, delete this face, Alt-Q to bring everything back, and let's try that Boolean Union again. And this time we have a solid, which is good. I'll just try and add that detail again by using a circle from the center. And I'll move this down a little bit. Let's do maybe something like this. You can see we have a number of edges again here. I'll just try and merge these. And this time merging did work. So what I'll try and do is I'll select this circle, go to sweep, and then we need to select the rails. I'm going to try and just select the object, then select the edge without copying or pasting it, and we can apparently do that. Hit done, and there we go. So right click to confirm. I'm going to delete that curve. And what I'm not liking is the fact that we're getting Oh no, it just looked like we're getting an additional line close to where the objects meet, but it seems I was wrong. Or was I? Let's just try and do a Boolean Union and see what happens. So select both of the objects and do a Boolean Union. And we're getting a solid, which is good. And this time it looks like we have two edges. So we just fixed that problem. And we can continue and fillet these ones. But it's only working on one side. Why is it not working on the other one? Let's try constant distance. No. Circular. So it's working on this side, but it's not working on the other side. And I'm not sure why that is. Let's just hit escape. And I'll try and fillet this edge. Question is it too big or too small? There's so many things that I don't really know in moment of inspiration. This is weird. So what happens if I select these faces and delete them? It doesn't look like we have a problem inside here. So I am wondering why we can't add a fillet. Let's try adding a chamfer instead of a fillet. And this is not working either. A bigger one is working. So let's try a bigger fillet, see what happens. And a bigger fillet is working as well. So that's interesting. I have no idea whatsoever why we're getting this effect. I'll just try and increase the radius until I get something that I can use. What if we try constant on this one? It's not working either. 0.8. 1. Point 8. 0.9. So I'll stick with that. You can try and rebuild this again if you want to, but I don't want to spend the rest of my life doing this here. I have no idea why this happened. It should work fine. The geometry seems to be okay. So let's go ahead and add a small fillet over here. 0.2 is good. Let's right click to confirm. And I'm going to select the rest of these edges. Okay, so let's add a small fillet here. 0.1, and 0.1 looks good to me, so I'll just confirm that. And let's fillet this one. 0.05 maybe. Oh, and I forgot some edges here. I'll do 0.1 for these. Which I think looks good. So right click to confirm. And this is the last one. I'll do 0.05 for this one again. Right click to confirm that. And there we go. So this is our finished mechanical rod. So this took longer than expected because of the problems we had. And I still don't know enough about MoI to know how to fix certain things. We did manage to solve some. We didn't really manage to solve this one. But the fillet does look okay, so... Anyway, this is the end of this tutorial. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.